Well, thank you for joining us for the news review this Tuesday morning, and happy Eid al-Fitr to you, in case you're just joining us. And I would like to say same to Liz Hafen, a Sari media consultant. Liz, a very good morning to you, and happy Eid.
Thank you. And I want to wish all Muslims a happy Eid.
Right. I see it's an orange Eid. That's the theme. You're donning orange and I'm donning yellow. Almost color coding. But here we are, another beautiful Tuesday morning. And it's a lean morning when it comes to the newspapers. So we're going to content ourselves with the media portals, beginning with myjoyonline.com. And we'll get into other matters. But before we even do that, or maybe as we do that, because the stories are here as well, yesterday, we had that confab with the nation, former President John Dramani Mahama interacting with Ghana and Ghanaians and talking about our current economic state, the E-levy, the human rights situation, among many other things, development on different fronts. And maybe this quote is reflective or gives a summary picture of what he says. An assessment of our current conditions shows that what is happening now bears very little or no resemblance to what was promised. There is a sharp disparity between promise and practice. That is John Dramani Mahama in that pretty lengthy delivery yesterday. I'm sure you followed bits and pieces of what he said, Liz. What is your quick reflection on everything he said? He has promised that a future NDC government would lift the E-levy. What do you make of what the former president said yesterday?
I listened to the former president yesterday, and I think that he raised a lot of issues that are being swept under the carpet. I believe that if a government or if a party makes promises and comes into office, then it behoves on them to make sure that they deliver. And unfortunately, that is not what we are seeing. A lot of the promises that were made are left hanging. And so if you listen to former president yesterday, you realize that he recalled a lot of things that had been promised and a lot of things that had not been done. And it's where we are, is where we are at now. I believe that the government needs to wake up, if I should call it so, because people are really waiting for them to fulfill promises that they made. And if that is not done, then you realize that a lot of people will begin to lose faith in the government. And then it probably would result in apathy when it comes to the next elections, because people are not seeing what was expected to happen. The removal of the E-levy, I have listened to arguments with regards to the E-levy, and I've said to myself that we need the money to really fix things in the country. We can't always go borrowing. Is the E-levy the best option? Maybe not. Are there options? Maybe we need to investigate if there are options. If we haven't done so, then we need to start doing so. My concern for the E-levy,
but if we had an alternative, would you, as a citizen, be content if the E-levy were taken away? How do you feel about that?
It would depend. It would depend. If is the money going to be used for the purposes for which it is being raised?
Right.
We realize that, well, a lot of money has come in and there's still questions as to what the monies have been used for. And we are still asking for accountability. And you need to be able to convince the public that what you're collecting is good for all of us. Just saying it and leaving it at that will not go well with the people. They want to see progress. They want to see development. They want to see an increase in their standards of living.
Right.
And if that is not happening, then people will definitely not be willing to pay taxes because the taxes are not auguring well for their well-being.
And I guess that's been the call of many people, hasn't it? They've insinuated that it's not a matter of paying taxes. We would gladly pay more, but we also want to see more done with what we are paying. But then, do you fundamentally agree with John Dramani Mahama when he says most Ghanaians feel they were hoodwinked, tricked, deceived, and this is manifesting in their personal livelihood and their daily struggles? Do you then agree with him when he says that?
Is that political talk?
I wouldn't know. You would have to ask John Dramani Mahama.
Because I know that no government has been perfect. No government has fulfilled all its promises. Each time there's a government, there's still gaps. There's still people who are calling for more. There's still people who are not seeing things being done for them. But generally, on the whole, if you look at the two governments, you realize that there was more of infrastructural development and more of concern towards the masses during the NDC tenure than there is today. So if he's calling for the government to be up and doing, it's because of what the people are saying. And the cry of the people is very important. If you realize of late, we are having a lot of labor unrest. And this is because people's salaries have remained the same over a long period of time, and yet they're paying more and more taxes and nothing is happening. I think that our productivity levels as a nation is very low, and therefore we need to do a lot about it. If we had a very productive nation and we were earning more through what we were producing, we probably would be less critical and less concerned about the taxes that are being charged, because we'll be earning more as a nation. As it is, we're paying more taxes, we are not earning anything, and yet we're still paying more taxes, and we are not seeing it resulting in the kind of development that we would want to see as a people.
I just want us to wrap on a few other things that the president said so we can move on to other emerging or developing stories as well. But I do recall that yesterday in speaking, he also reiterated that call that he's been making, that we need better accountability when it comes to our COVID-19 spending. And that it's something he's always spoken about. And all the money we seem to have got, where did it go? How did we expend it? Would you support that call?
Yes, I will. We need accountability and transparency. And if in government you have collected monies from outside to help in a pandemic, you need to be able to tell the people that the monies that came in this and this and this is what it was used for. When you do so, then you gain the confidence of the people in the fact that they understand what the monies have been used for. They know that it wasn't spent recklessly. They know how well it has gone to help in recovering the nation, because we are undergoing some recovery. The pandemic has hit other nations far worse than it did us. And so I think the government needs to really come out and tell us, because it told us the monies it had received and other people knew the monies that had been received. Come out and tell us. The World Bank, I believe that wherever you get the money from, you'd have to give them a report. And so if you're giving them a report, why should the report be hidden from your citizens if the monies have been used for them?
And just to wrap on this point, because it affects you, it affects me in our practice. And it is also reflective of some of what Sam Jonah, Sir Sam Jonah and others have said. I want you to contemplate this. John Dramani Mahama also says, no government in our recent history has demonstrated a lack of democratic temperament in dealing with issues of dissent and public criticism than the one headed by President Akufo-Addo. Do you agree with him, Liz? And if you don't, what are your reasons?
I'm trying to recall a few incidents that happened over the NDC era with regard to journalists and their work. And I think that both sides have
both sides are culpable.
I want to choose the word carefully. No, I didn't want to say culpable, but yes, both sides have been culpable. Both sides have not been too welcoming when it comes to news that is not palatable to them, and their followers or their foot soldiers have reacted in certain ways. But again, under the NPP, I think that I've seen more action from the police, should I say government institutions, against journalists than just ordinary people coming up against journalists and maltreating or harassing them. So both sides have not been very open and very welcoming towards journalists, especially when what they're reporting is not what they want to see or what they want to hear. And you realize that the followers of the parties are the ones who are more open to attacking journalists and shaming them or destroying their properties than the institutions per se.
And let me just ask you quickly on the E-levy. Have you had any transactions, made any transactions since it hit on Sunday, May the 1st? What have your experiences been? Or if not, what have you heard?
I have done a lot of transactions, and okay. I keep saying that for me, it's comfortable to transfer money from my phone without having to go anywhere. It bothers me, especially when you want to go to the bank and you're stuck in the traffic for about an hour, and you can do it over your phone. Mine is the threshold of 100 cedis. I think that it won't go well for majority of the people because that figure is low, and if you're charging 1.5 on 100 cedis after the first 100 cedis, and somebody earns, let's say, 500 cedis and has to transfer 300 cedis to family. Maybe he's in Accra, his family is in some village somewhere, and he has to transfer money. And you take that amount of money out of 200 cedis that he's sending. It's not little when he looks at it, because whatever will be left for him would be far, far less than what he anticipated he would have. But again, it will cost less for him to transfer over a Momo than to pick up transport and go and give the money physically. But I think that we still need to look at those who are below a certain bracket.
Let's move away from the politics for a bit and come down to real life issues. We know about bigamy in our country, but in Nigeria, from what a few friends have told me, there are different dynamics apart from even the Muslim community. And of course, we celebrate our Muslims. At the end, I'll give you an opportunity to deliver an Eid al-Fitr message. But there's this actor, Yul Edochie, and he is son of one of the most famous actors in Nigeria. I think it's Peter Edochie. And he's been married for about 16 years. But he married a second wife in recent times, and he's been hailing his first wife. Here's why I think maybe you might want to take a swipe at it. He has said that marrying a second wife is the best decision in his life. It's the best decision he has ever made. And social media has been agog with all kinds of comments. When you look at the first wife and the second wife, even if you're just looking at aesthetic bits, some people say, oh, she is trim, slim, and all of that. The second wife has a bit more flesh. I am being cautious about my description so I don't come across as anything. But these are things that people have looked at on social media and said, so after 16 years, your wife maintains herself this way, and yet you still do X, Y, Z. Can there be any justification as far as Yul Edochie is concerned? How do you find it? Should it be a problem if he wants a second wife? He says it's the best thing that ever happened to him.
I believe that everyone has choices. But if you said bigamy, then bigamy, I think it's marrying.
No, it's in our context. So I'm just using bigamy in our context.
Okay, so polygamy.
Yes, polygamy to be.
It's more of polygamy. Well, I believe that in Africa we don't frown on polygamy. I mean, if you marry under the ordinance, then you have committed yourself to having one wife and one wife only. But if you marry customarily or under traditional laws, then you probably can take more than one wife. And I'm talking about in Ghana. I don't know what pertains in Nigeria. But is it because he's a celebrity that his private business is all over the place? I would have thought that he would have dealt with it privately and people would have left him in his space.
You know what's interesting? He actually posted on social media. He had been posting a lot about his first wife, hailing her, saying that without her, he wouldn't be where he is. There were times when he had no job and all of that. She took care of him. And now, of course, he's well-to-do. He's been hailing his first wife. He's given her props. But then he also comes on social media. He puts forth his other woman, who is now a second wife, so to speak, and a child they have. So he has a baby with this woman, Star, and it's a pretty long name. So people didn't even have to take him on. He came out, put it on social media, and then people descended on him. And he said, curiously, he had attempted, getting into politics and so many things. People had not sent him or taken him on or put him out on social media like that. But once he talks about getting a second wife, then everyone is on his case. That's just some context for you as you go on.
I find it very interesting, and I'm wondering why people are on his case. He has a choice to have two wives, unless he's married under the ordinance.
Right.
And so if he's putting it out there, he probably is putting information out there. Is he the only one who has two wives? And then you said he has a child with the second wife, and I'm assuming he doesn't have children with the first one. If that is the case, then maybe that's why people will be shouting.
I believe he does have children with the first wife.
So then it's his choice. I think that it's his life to live. I wouldn't hurt my head over what he does, seriously.
Right. Anyway, and the first wife reacted on social media with these words: "May God judge you both." That is the simple message she put there. The first wife reacting to the post he put up on social media about his second wife and the baby: "May God judge you both."
So she probably is not happy about the fact that he's married a second wife. But why not? I mean, if the relationship between her and her husband are good, and he takes on another woman, and I know that in certain traditions, before a man can marry a second wife, the first wife would have to give consent. So if she didn't give consent, why didn't he ask her permission?
In fact, he talks about that. He says it was his, he is happy that he did it with, he didn't need to seek her consent on the matter. It is clear that she would have been averse to any idea of a second wife. So he went ahead. And again, it has connotations because he starts talking a long time ago about his financial lack of dependence and now his financial independence. So now he is saying, and that is where a lot of the women I've seen on social media feel aggrieved. They feel when you were dependent on her, I mean, you didn't attempt this, but now that you are enjoying some financial independence, you want to go ahead and do this. Does that make him wrong?
I'm not a judge. I won't say it makes him wrong, but I think that the first wife would definitely be hurt because when you had nothing, she sacrificed everything for you. And when she sacrificed everything for you, now that you have, instead of taking care of her and her children, you think that, well, you have more that you can spread around. So definitely she will be aggrieved. I think that if the culture does not ask that he seeks her permission, then maybe he's right. But culturally, traditionally, I know that if you're taking on a second wife, you need the permission of the first wife. So if you didn't have it from her, then you definitely won't have it easy with her.
Anyway, so let's move away. And I'm told he may not exactly have children with the first wife, though I intimated that he did. But here's something else. I just want to come back to the E-levy, moving away from his family business. E-levy will apply to your tithes. This is well on myjoyonline.com. That's the Telecoms Chambers CEO, Engineer Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe. This got me interested as he interacted with me and later on the Super Morning Show as well on radio. Initially, we had conversations about tithing and all of that. And speaking to Deputy Finance Minister Dr. John Kuma, he explained that, these were not going to be affected, your zakat, if you're Muslim, or your tithe. And then again, that some of these churches would have to get merchant accounts and all of that. But per what Dr. Ashigbe is saying, even your tithes, a tenth of what you've earned in a month, could be affected by the E-levy. I put it in the context of people saying in the past that we ought to tax churches. What is your reflection on all of this?
Well, I didn't think that it would affect churches, or it would affect taxes and tithes. So I really haven't given it any mind so far. But why would we want to be taxing tithes and churches now if we haven't enforced a law to that? So
maybe just to add some context, if you are paying it via mobile money, it will be affected. Of course, if you are carrying it to church, it will not be affected. But if you decide to pay it via mobile money, that is when you'll be hit.
I don't know what to say about that. If that's what the E-levy law says, then probably everybody's caught in that net. So would people stop paying their tithes over electronic payments and rather carry the physical cash to church? I don't know. It depends on individuals. But
maybe let me couch it in this manner. If you were paying your tithes and you had no other option but to pay it via Momo because of where you were, and obviously you're giving a specific amount. Let's say you're paying 2,000 cedis, and because of course, the E-levy and the other taxes you will have to pay, you're not going to have exactly 2,000 cedis, which means you must top up. How would that make you feel?
I'd pay it. If I had no alternative, I'd pay it. I'd pay it because I think that my commitment, first and foremost, is to God and to the things I do with regards to God. And as a Christian, I would pay my tithe no matter what. So if the only option was to pay it over the electronic device, I will do it. As to whether it's taxed or it's not taxed, I believe that whatever I earn and whatever I get is a blessing from God. So I'll do it without hesitation, but maybe not everybody will.
Let's get back into other matters, and I want to talk labor now. It's been an interesting few days as we've engaged the TUC and CLOGSAG and other groupings on labor conditions. It's interesting because the TUC's General Secretary, Dr. Yauba, has been insisting that government should up their wages by some 20%, that in fact it should match inflationary levels. Our inflation as of yesterday, sometime around yesterday, stood at around 19.4%. They are calling for 20%. There are also other concerns. They state, for example, that a liter of fuel is about 80% of our minimum wage. And they raise other concerns saying that people are struggling. People are not able to make ends meet. When you look at that, and you look at the call for the taxes on petroleum products to be scrapped, and on May Day, Mr. President says, we can't do that because that will take away some 4 billion Ghana cedis, and so we can't afford to do that. We hear from CLOGSAG's leader as well saying that they don't usually embark on industrial actions. So if you see them out there, it means things are really bad. How do you feel as part of the labor front and how government has reacted so far?
Things are very bad. I think that a lot more attention needs to be paid to public sector workers. But if you're not paid well, your productivity levels would go even lower. And therefore, you probably would not be producing as efficiently and as effectively as you should, because you're looking for other sources of income to support your daily life or to keep your head above water. And when you look at the salaries of public sector workers, if you have 2, 3 children, then I ask, where do they get money from to pay the children's school fees? Let's not talk about feeding in the home. Let's not talk about transportation to school or transportation to work. So people are in dire straits, very dire straits. And I was reading up on single spine because I realized working in the public sector, you're on a single pay policy that has been in effect for almost 10, if not more years, and nothing has been done with the policy. The policy was supposed to address a system. It was supposed to make public sector pay better, was supposed to make sure that salaries were, should I say, at par with those in the private sector. It has not been reviewed over 10 years. You have imposed taxes upon taxes, but people's salaries have not increased. Maybe if it has increased minimally. If you look at the daily wage and you look at somebody who earns a daily wage at the end of the month, if he has to pay rent, if he has to pay electricity, if he has to pay water, if he has to feed a family of 3 or 4, himself, his wife, 2 children, then you ask, where is he getting the money from? And so how would we be able to fight corruption if those in the public sector are not being paid well, and yet they have to live their lives up to a certain standard? Gone are the days where you'd see people working long hours to go to work. And they used to work because they felt that at the end of the month, they got something substantial. It's not like that anymore. And so people will do all kinds of things to have money in their pocket. So I believe that the government really has to wake up to the concerns of those on the labor front. I believe that if you look at the lifestyle of people at the top, I'm talking management levels, and you look at those who are doing the actual work and sweating it out, you realize that there's a vast disparity between those at the top and those who are doing the actual work. You would say that those at the top are the ones who have gone to school and have the brains, and they are mapping out what everybody else has to do. But then when you look at the salary ranges, it should range such that even those at the very bottom are have their heads above water, are living a kind of life that would make them happy, would make them comfortable. We are not seeing that now, and that's why there's agitation everywhere, because people are not really satisfied with what they're earning.
Let me just do this. I see some interesting comments coming through on social media, on Facebook to be specific. Let me just share a few as we get ready to wrap. This one says, it's from Kwabena Entry, who says, "Good morning, Ben. I'm Kwabena Entry, watching you live from Sifiri also. We're not against paying taxes, but the taxes paid must be put to good use to benefit the citizenry." And you send your regards, but we don't do that. So you send your regards to someone specific in the political fray. I would avoid that. Justice Ponyo says, "JM will cancel the E-levy in 2025. Will he now? Will he now?" That is even if he gets the nod. You know, I've learned from political cycles and things I've seen. Look at VAT. Kumi prekon, siemi prekon, viemi prekon. And when they came into power, they added more prekon. So that's just the way it is. Percy Randolph says, the church and their money. If you pay your tithes by Momo, E-levy will take its share. I am happy. How I wish the church would be taxed. Now this conversation... And then Hafiz Ibrahim Happy says, the salary matter, very necessary. So those are some of the comments you've been sharing on social media. Different strokes for different folks. But as we get ready to wrap the conversation, and before I take your thoughts, Liz, on the Eid, maybe leave you with giving a message, I want your take on this. And let me premise it by saying that I am very Catholic, staunch one, and proudly so, and I am very anti-abortion. But the US top court, there appears to have been a leak about a ruling repealing its abortion law. And the nationwide legal right to abortion has been described as egregiously wrong in the leaked document. Now, this is on the BBC. It's in fact their major story this hour. In Ghana, we've had our own stints with abortion here and there and the rights attached to it. Of course, in certain circumstances, per the law, you can have it, but in certain specific facilities and all of that. What do you think about this, though? Because I see it gathering momentum across the world in different places. In the US, Texas has its own thing, depending on the state arrangements. But for you, what do you think about this and for Ghana moving forward?
It's difficult for me to talk about it because I've seen cases where if you had asked me, I'd have said outright that I'd agree for whoever was seeking abortion in that circumstance to abort. But I wouldn't abort, no matter what. I won't abort. Like you, I'm staunch and I'm Christian, and I won't give it a second thought. But I've been in places like Sierra Leone and Liberia after their civil wars, after their disruptions.
Right.
Where
and people have been raped. Right.
Where you have ladies who got pregnant out of rape.
Right.
Guys they don't know. Guys they would never come into contact with again. And if in the early stages those ladies wanted to abort, I probably would have shut an eye and given them the go ahead, because those who did not abort and carried the pregnancy through and delivered have such hate for the children that they have born that I don't know how to describe it. You just can't imagine it. So for some of those children, we had to take them away from their mothers because the anger in their mother was against the father who had impregnated them, but the children were bearing the brunt for it. So for some of these things, you won't say that, oh, okay, let her have the child, because if she has the child, it's her child, she'll carry it. She doesn't even want the child in the first place. So it becomes very difficult and very dicey, especially when you go across and you see why people want to abort. But if it's through consent of yours to have sex with a particular person and you get pregnant out of that relationship and you want to abort, then I would be angry with you, because then if you knew you didn't want to have a child, you shouldn't have gone to play around in the first place.
Anyway, so to wrap the conversation, Aaron Babako Kokomisa says, good morning to you. Most Ghanaians have embraced their fears. Most Ghanaians that are mobile money wallet subscribers have been put into critical thinking conditions, whether to cancel their subscriptions or not. My point is that the introduction of an electronic levy is going to automatically increase the prices of goods and services in the system. And secondly, is going to cancel certain small businesses off the system. May that money generated from the electronic levy be put to good use. And that is our hope for all of us, because like it or not, at some point, we'll be hit by it. Do you have a message, an Eid message that we can wrap the conversation with to our Muslim brothers and sisters?
I normally don't give Eid messages. I do to a few individuals who are close friends. So let me say that on the occasion of Eid, I wish our Muslim brothers and sisters well. I pray God's blessings upon them. I pray that this period of fasting, I know for many of them, it's also a period of stock taking, and they program themselves for the days ahead of them till the next fasting period. A lot of them look to helping those who are not well-to-do, in giving alms and in making sure that they are able to feed those who probably are not being fed. I want to say congratulations to them, and I pray God's blessings upon them, and I pray that they'll continue to stand in unity, and I pray that as a nation, we would continue to see a good relationship between Christians, Muslims, and all other religions.
Amen. Amen to that. And thank you too, Liz, for joining the conversation. And do have a happy holiday.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. And that's how we wrap it up for this morning's news review. Thank you for watching. But up next, we have sports coming your way. And after that, we get into our big stories. I'll be looking at Ghana at a crossroads and what this really means for the country. Later on, we'll find out why some people in the Bono East region are refusing to take COVID-19 vaccination. All of that on the AM show. Do stay.